I'm going to be ranking all the X factors in EASHL. I'm going to be ranking these X factors based on how effective they've been over the course of 3 years. X factors were first introduced in NHL 22. I'm going to be comparing it then to how effective they are now in NHL 24. Sort of give a rating as a whole, overall. I'm only going to be comparing these X factors to how they were used in 3s and 6s. Pretty much clubs or drop-ins. I'm not going to be concerning it with 1s or 3s eliminator if there was any comp strategies with that. I never played it. It's only drop-ins and clubs, essentially, for me. So I'm going to go take a look at the first one, which is All Alone. This one was never used. Never really used in 6s so much, right? But it was kind of a comp strategy if you were getting a lot of breakaways in 3s, right? If you had human tendy, this could be pretty much, you know, it gave you an advantage when it comes to the breakaways. And then if you're on a penalty shot, right, because there's many penalty shots in 3s as well, it would help you there as well. Now, if you were just facing compy goalies, AI goalies, then if you do a glitch goal, it pretty much guarantees you it, so you don't really need this so much. It was more so for human tennies alone. I think a C rating for me. Ankle breaker, in my opinion, I never really used it too much. I don't really use the dangler that much, but I know that a lot of people can actually, you know, dangle pretty well in this game. I don't think dangling itself, especially with the animations being so clunky in the game, really kind of gives it a high rating. It's definitely not up here at all. It would probably be between a B and C. I think for now, I'm going to probably give it a B because I do think obviously it's better than All Alone, but I just don't think... I would say... it probably is a C, to be honest. I'm going to put a C for now, and I'll kind of see how it ends up. Back at you. See, the thing is, NHL 22, Back at you was like it was like a new mechanic, right? The reverse hit. They kind of gave the trait to sort of help with that animation. I never really used it too much. I did use it a few times when I was using obviously a power forward, but I would combine it with unstoppable force. I never used it as a zone, but I have seen it be effective to a degree when you're not facing truculence. So somebody who's going to come at you, back at you, would obviously counter that and overpower the hit. If you were going to face truculence, I think you would lose, especially in 22 where the meta was truculence with power forwards. I think, honestly, back at you would sort of be somewhere here, probably in front of, well, nah, because if you really think about it, NHL 24, it's not used at all, because you can actually do a solid reverse hit without the trait. So I don't even think it's really needed. I mean, it's crazy we have 3 here in the C. It's not really good at all, to be honest. So beauty backhand, I would probably give this a B, especially when you're trying to do the same move when it comes to like a glitch goal or something like that, just to ensure that you can get it. And there actually has been some crazy snipes that I've seen from beauty backhand. Thing is, now again in NHL 24, it kind of felt like the backhand was enhanced, like you don't really necessarily need it. In 22, 23, I saw it being used more again in 3s. I don't think it was needed in 3s so much in 24. Maybe against human tendies, but against compy goalies, you could snipe them pretty much anywhere. This is big rig. See, the thing is about big rig, you could actually make it sort of comp a little bit because of the ability to drive to the net, right? So you could like, you wouldn't necessarily need it, I guess, in 3s. I mean, you could, obviously, but I feel like in 6s, right? When you're trying to get around the bend and you're trying to drive to the crease, like big rig sort of is like a good starting trait, I would say. Especially when you're trying to get used to the controls and, you know, people just trying to drive to the net. You're not really trying to stick handle too much. You're just trying to pull it away from defenders and guys try to hit you. I don't actually know if it's only when you drive to the net. I kind of forget because I haven't really used it too much. You could even put it into the C, but it's probably... Obviously, I would say it's a good starting trait, but not something that, again, would be considered comp in any way. Big tipper. Now we start talking. Big Tipper, in my opinion, has to be an S because it is a OP ability, dude. It is honestly very OP. And even in 24, you can friggin', I mean, you can, if you're tipping the puck, man, you get a stick. It's almost a guaranteed goal sometimes, just depending on how it is. The only counter to this would be obviously a defenseman or center stick lifting the guy in the slot. I do this all the time whenever guys try to shoot from the point, and I see somebody, especially with Big Tipper, you have to ensure that they never get a stick on it, because you know if they do, it's a damn goal. So another reason why it also enters the S is because it's banned in LG. So leagues don't even want this trait to be used because they know people would be going for it and exploiting the crap out of it. So S trait, in my opinion. Born Leader. This shit was never used. Come on now. Nobody ever used Born Leader. Like, are you kidding me? If anybody ever did, it was just to experiment. I believe there's a preset in NHL 24 where somebody used it, but it is not good at all. This is, was it Bounce Back? I've never seen people use it either. Actually, it would be good because I think, wait, how does it even activate? Is it like less chance of getting injured? The only use of it would be against Truculence in previous years. You probably could use it now too if you were going to face like a triple truck team in 3s. In 6s, it has no place, I don't think. Unless you just don't want to be injured, but it's like really, like, it don't really matter too much. Like, it's not as bad to be injured in 6s because you have 4 other guys that are playing, you know, at top potential. But in 3s, you have 1/3 of your team that's sort of not playing their best when you're injured. So if you get 2 guys that are injured, I mean, that's just a problem there. It probably could be used, but I mean, you would have it would be like the back of the C category. It wouldn't be necessarily not used, but it would be at the very back. And regardless of how long this goes, this would always remain in the back. And I'm actually going to bring this up, probably back at you, bring it up to past Ankle Breaker, because I've never seen really people too many people use that. But I do actually, I have seen people use back at you, but it's sort of like, you know, you're kind of like on the same line. Bouncer, this is another one of those things, man, where I've never personally used it, so I would put it there technically. But how I would grade it in terms of other people, there actually was an esports center, I believe, that had used it. Like, they might consider it to be really well, but I just don't think nobody's going to be using that, in my opinion, because if you think about it, right, like, you would, it's for net battles, right? And it's also for when you're on the boards and you're fighting for the puck. I think it's when you like hold the guy. I'm not sure if that's exactly what it is, but I know it's like for stronger front net presence, so you can nudge people out away from your crease, or you can sort of getting it lock them into like an animation, I guess, for longer. It was never used because you never really needed to do it. You could still do it without it, especially in NHL 24 if you really think about it. I mean, I could stick lift guys and then I can nudge them, and I mean, that's enough for them to get away from the crease for at least a couple seconds. So Bouncer was never needed to accomplish that. Close quarters, ahead of Big Tipper, S. I mean, this is used on almost every single offensive build. 3, 6s, you name it, it is always being used. It is such an OP trait. And yeah, it's almost needed on every single build. This could be borderline best trait in the game, depending on how you see the effectiveness of shooting versus skating, but we'll get to that later on. Close quarters, in my opinion, definitely an S tier ability. You should always use that trait on your offensive builds. Crease Crasher. People, I don't know if we would use this too much. I want to say it's B, because I don't think, like, it can be used, especially when you combine like sort of the physics of the game when you abuse certain animations. So like a lot of low shot rebounds, Crease Crasher could get it. Like, if it's going to be a rebound shot, it would definitely get it. I don't know, it's not used as much, but I'd say it probably is probably a mid-tier, like kind of where I'm putting a B. I would probably say it's not comp, it's not completely useless, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily needed. I think you do get this trait early on, and I do believe it would be a good beginner trait to use, just so that like you're getting used to like rebounds. Like you're not going to be that skillful. You're just going to hang, you know, near the net trying to get rebounds. I think with Crease Crasher, you could probably use that. Here we go. Elite edges. This is the conversation between either close quarters or elite edges. Elite edges is definitely the best trait in the game. Considering now the recent season in NHL 24 where they added this for every single build in the game now. Every single class has access to elite edges. Obviously, I gave the hot take then that NHL 25, they would take it out. They may or may not do that. But if they do, I mean, there's a big reason. It's because literally it is the best, most used trait in the game. Across all 3 years. This is the only trait that's really being mained on every single build, especially when you play sixes. You have all 5 skaters using gold elite edges, and it's really because it's that good. You get just certain broken animations. You can negate so many checks. Honestly, in NHL 24, you can negate a Truculence hit. Now, when you were to try and face Truculence in 22 and 23, this would lose to it. I think. I mean, depending on how good you are. But I just think the trait itself gave the players far too many animations with Truculence that it could overpower elite edges. But overall, NHL 24, this is obviously now the best trait in the game. By far, easy S tier. Heatseeker. This is interesting because the conversation can be made that it is an A trait. Only because of some people, the way they use it. Some people, if you're playing like defensemen, they might even throw it on as like center, like high slot shots. And it could be comp if you usually play high in a sixes environment. It is better than these traits down here. So that is the reason why I might want to give it an A, because it is definitely better. But I don't know, depending on these other A's, that it might drop down a tier, but it would be at the start of the B tier, in my opinion, versus these other ones. But I will place it in the A for now, and I would say let's come back to this one, because I do think it's definitely a good shot. I mean, especially if you're at the point, you want to be like, I don't even know, like Kale McCarr, who, you know, Erik Karlsson, you're like those types of offensive defenseman type players that want to just shoot from the point and try to sneak one through. Or it could just be a more powerful shot for a deflection, so you could combine that with big tipper in sixes and in threes too. So you have 2 X factors going off for 1 play. So it could be a good combination that way. That's why I'm kind of bringing it up, because it does combine with big tipper in being able to sink those shots more often. This is what, Ice Pack? I believe this is you don't lose too much stamina when you get hit. So this is better than this, but it's just not useful. It just, again, if it's only targeting one specific trait in Truculence as a counter, or at least something that could negate most of the damage that Truculence would do, it's not really that useful, because anywhere else you just wouldn't put it on. In reverse, interesting. Definitely at least a B, in my opinion. Head of the pack here, at least a B. If you use the, what is the first one, Bones, the first preset for NHL 24, yeah, it was Bones, right? So it was a very good starting trait, beginner trait. I don't think it's necessarily A, but I would put it probably in the B, because it is good for guys like trying to learn to play defense. They're not so like skillful at that position. They, you know, if you learn the fundamentals of the game, you're going to try to back skate a lot. So using this would help you sort of stay in the back pedal, not have to turn and skate all the time. So there's, I would say, definitely good starting trait, like I said before. And I would say, yeah, it's kind of good there. It's tricky. Okay. Yeah, throw that one out. There's no way anybody's ever going to be using that, especially if it was ever going to be an actual zone trait for EASHL. You can actually get this in like Be a Pro as like the first one that you get, career mode or something. But like, throw that one out. Nobody's gonna be doing these like between the leg freaking shots or something like that. Like, it's so stupid. But maybe somebody could find a way to use it, but no, it's just not really, it's just not used at all, man. Magnetic. This is an interesting one. 22. Was it 22? It was a needed trait. In NHL 22, you would even say that this was an S tier trait because you needed it on every single build. Or, I mean, even defense, I feel like. But, like, every offensive build needed to have because passing was so ridiculously difficult that, like, a simple pass would bounce off everybody's stick if you didn't have it. And anything that was, like, super hard, right? You needed to be super precise with the passing. When it comes to, like, competitive leagues and stuff like that, competitive games, I mean, nobody's going to be that precise with it every single time. And if you throw a muffin down the middle because you're trying not to have it bounce off their stick, somebody's going to be like intercepting that very easily, poking it or whatever. So in 22, it was good. Honestly, in 23, that's when it kind of lost its thunder because it was never really needed anymore. And then same with 24. So you could bounce it back again. When you compare it, I think the last two games would probably downgrade it to a B category, in my opinion. It's not too many. Like, if now you do notice that, like, these traits, there's a lot more now in the BC. It's literally because they're not as used. These ones up here are far more competitive than these other ones, in my opinion. That's why nobody ever really branches out their builds right now. So right now, let's see what happens, but I think we're eventually going to start filling up this A category. I don't know. We may have one or two more in the S. Make it snappy. This is one that is used a lot in 24 now. So I'm interested. It is definitely at least an A. But you can make the argument that it could be an S because a lot of forward builds now have Make It Snappy. A lot of competitive builds. I wouldn't say it goes above Big Tipper, but, well, actually probably because it's something that can be used. Would we call this an S or do we think it is an A? If it was an A, it would definitely be above HEATSEAKER. But what would classify it as an S? Something that is abused, something that is needed on every single build, or at least needed on every single team. When it comes to sixes competitive, and even in threes, there's a lot of cut plays. Even in 23, I would probably make the argument that it could be good. There was a lot of cut plays where animations would make it snappy, like these weird like angle shots where your guy like sort of twerks his body around, throws his body around to get a certain angle shot. That's where Make It Snappy could end up here. Do we give it an S? Because I don't know entirely. It could also activate on certain, 1T shots. But there's a reason, like, not everybody mains it. So for it to be an S, it would have to be OP enough for people to use. Like, it would need to be as clear as close quarters. I'm going to give it an A. Because I don't think it's necessarily as good as these other ones when you sort of cater to a certain style of something being abused a lot. So I don't think it's necessarily, but it is a good trait to have on. I could be wrong here. I think some people would probably put it as an S, but I'm going to put it here as an A for now. No contest. This is another one where I would say probably an A, but it is interesting because it is a banned trait. I think in esports, I'm not entirely sure for LG if it is necessarily banned anymore. I know you have Big Tipper, Unstoppable Force, Truculence, and then I don't know how, if it was like NHL level and then esports, or if it was just esports alone, where no contest is banned. It is a good trait. I would obviously market it as better, it being better than HEATSEAKER. It can be good. It's just not an abusive trait. So I would give it an A, in my opinion, because I do think it is good, right? It's definitely good for like picking up those loose pucks when you're battling in front of net, picking up on the boards, like when you're fighting for it. If you have the trait, you're pretty much almost guaranteed to get it. but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to hang on to that puck, because you could get it and then you just immediately lose it, right? But it does like get rid of like this. If you are to get it, like you would get the puck about 80-something% of the time, which is the reason why it's very good. It's just I wouldn't say it's necessarily an S in my opinion. Off the rush. Yeah, this is awesome. No, it's not. Off the rush definitely would have to be. It would have to be somewhere in the C, because I don't see anybody ever really using it. I'm not sure when you can even use it. Is it like for a power forward? I would say better than the ice pack. Probably right here, to be honest. I don't think it's really useful either way. I mean, off the rush, maybe you can tuck one in if a goalie's not really aware of it, or from a certain angle off the rush. But I mean, to only go for that, like all you would have to do as a defenseman is really just stay in front of him when he winds up getting his way in poke check, and it's like he'll never get that shot off. So obviously it's just simply not used. 1T. This is interesting because I would give it an S based on how many people have used it. 22, I think passes went through a lot, didn't they? Or was it 21? It was definitely 21. I don't know if in 22 it was much different with the passes going through, and the, especially against compy goalies, certain angles it would always go in. It's definitely a useful trait. Would you say it's better than Big Tipper? I would, yeah, actually, I would say it's better. But this is more related to skill. Like, you have to manually set that up, and you have to know and properly place your player to actually take a 1T and have it tuck in every time, right? So the game also gives you an animation too at certain times when the pass is not right on a T. Your guy will sometimes get a slingshot animation. We've seen this before, where like somebody who's not quite there could like sort of get that sort of burst of speed into the puck, and it becomes a very powerful shot. So yeah, it is definitely an S tier trait in my opinion. Puck in a string, A in my opinion, because I do think it is useful with certain play styles when it comes to controlling the puck and sort of dangling back and forth, even on breakaways, penalty shots, right? It is good. It is better than HEATSEAKER. Could be better than No Contest as well. I do think it obviously takes more skill to use it. Do I see many people using it? Not everybody, but it is, I think, a good solid trait to use with certain play styles, especially ones that are more skillful. So I will say the effectiveness of it can definitely be used a lot, sort of at a higher level, and also at a regular level too. Just sort of being able to stick handle very quickly and not get poke checked very instantly. This is what? Quick draw? This you can't even use in EASHL, so we'll go over that or skip over that. So quick pick. Interesting. Quick pick, I would say, is an A at least. Better than HEATSEAKER. It's a good trait. It's not used a lot at a higher level. Very good beginner level trait. Somebody who isn't as skilled defensively. So you could use it for center. You could also use it for defenseman. You can also combine those two traits as well. Is it better than No Contest? Could be. It just depends on how you play, where you're playing. I would say it's like right on the edge. Like they're both used sort of the same. I would say maybe it is better than No Contest. It is an A in my opinion, because I think it does help out a lot of beginner players. I've used it a lot in 22. I thought it was really good, especially when it's the first trait for two-way defensemen. If you're brand new to the game, it is a good starting build for you to use, especially if you're trying to learn how to intercept pucks. You can sort of gauge the effectiveness of your positioning based on if you're actually able to get certain interceptions. If you can't, then obviously your placement's really bad because the trait's not even helping you. Once you get to the point where you know you're getting pucks, then you can get away from using quick pick and then use something else. But it is definitely a solid trait to use either way. This is Seeing Eye, right? Seeing Eye, again, could be combined with Big Tipper. It just can be good. I would say it's better than any of these traits here if you were gonna use a shooting trait from the point. Sort of combined to like what type of shot do you want, so it's either Heatseeker or Seeing Eye. You can sort of like, these are kind of on the same parameter. It's the same thing with like these two traits are sort of on the same edge. Better than these two traits depending on how offensive you are, but you would need a screen for this one. Heatseeker, you could just simply throw it on and you can get a big tipper deflection, or you could just snipe it, right? Seeing Eye, you could also snipe too, so that's why these are kind of on the same level. Good solid traits are the way. Send It. This is a good starting trait. Good starting trait, big time. If you're a puck mover, right? A PMD, somebody who's learning the game as well when it comes to passing. So if you play PMD at level 1, it is good. But how good is it? I don't think... Once you unlock other passing traits, I think this ceases to exist because those other passing traits activate more. So I don't think Send It is as comp. I wouldn't say it's something that you would need in a competitive standpoint. You could use these traits here and be competitive. I think in the A and S, I would consider this to be like competitive used traits, right? Or something that could be used. Send It, I don't think is ever really used when it comes to competitive. But you're playing anything lower than that, these other traits could be potentially used. So Send It, I would say it's a good starting trait, but it isn't as good as some of these other ones. This is SHNIPE, right? Or SHNIPE, whatever it's called. Again, you could say it could be here. I don't think it should be. I think it is a B tier shooting trait in my with how it is, right? When you combine, when you compare it to Make It Snappy, Make It Snappy in my opinion is clearly better. I think Close Quarters is clearly better. I think these other shooting traits, like if you're a defenseman, obviously you would shoot from the point, right? And if you were going to use Make It Snipe, it can activate anywhere, but you would have to hold your position for I think a half second or a full second. I'm not even sure. You would have to hold your position on the forehand and then take a shot, which is far too long. Here you could take shots, right, with Heatseeker, Make It Snappy, or Heatseeker, Seeing Eye. You could just shoot the puck immediately once you get it or something, and it could still activate. Snipe, it takes a while. It's not going to be competitively used because it just, especially when it comes to certain defenses, you're just not going to get there, man. Shock and Awe, again, probably the same thing, because again, it's only activated on toe drag release shots. So if you're going to try to bring out your Austin Matthews and things like that, the problem with that, I would say it probably goes back behind this shooting trait. But if you actually were to look at some of these other traits, you might even say that Send It is better than them, depending on it, or they're sort of on the same playing field. I would still classify it as a B category. But yeah, Shock and Awe, yeah, it could be used, yeah, you know, but it has to be like a certain specific type shot and move that you're making. If you always do toe drag releases, you're going to use it, but it's not comp at all. The thing is too, right, Close Quarters, you could do a toe drag release and Close Quarters would still activate. Make It Snappy, I'm not sure if it would activate. I don't think, because I think it has to be a shot, not from a move or any type of stick handle. But I think just because of the fact that, like, you're not going to do a Shock and Awe from way out wide, you're going to be probably more closer to the net. When you get to a certain point, Close Quarters will activate. You would just use Close Quarters, and then you have other shots that could also go in as well. So Close Quarters, I mean, that's why it sort of is just way better. It's not even comp at all compared to these other ones too. Wait, is this Shrug It Off? So what was Ice Pack? Ice Pack is probably... I actually don't know what these traits even mean then. Shrug It Off, I would put on the same playing field as here. Again, I think... I actually don't know what these... I don't know what Ice Pack does then. Because I actually thought that's what Shrug It Off does. Because Ice Pack... Yeah, I actually don't know what it does because it just is not used. Again, it's only useful if you're a really small guy, you're playing at super big builds. But again, that's one situation. It's just And to have that for specific, like, it's like for your stamina reasons, right? But that's like, you know, nah, it's just not really competitive at all. Not really used. Shutdown, solid trait, solid. It is not S though. I would say it's A, and I would put it on the same playing field when it comes to, because like this is a defensive trait you compare to an offensive trait. It's like that. This doesn't mean that Make It Snappy is less than Shutdown. It just depends on what position you're playing. This front end here, I would say these are on the same playing field based on offense versus defense, like whatever type build you're trying to format, right? I would say it's definitely a useful silver trait or superstar trait. You wouldn't use it as a zone trait necessarily, again. So I think Shutdown, definitely very solid on centers, defensemen. So it's definitely got some really good defensive capabilities. And it, yeah, it's I would say it's a very good trait. It's on border with it being a potential S trait, but it just simply isn't up there. This is what's skilled up, right? Is that for the Michigans and all the other like type crazy deeks, right? Is it only specific for the Michigan? It's crazy because like I would consider this almost just simply not used. I thought that you would see a lot of people using it. I actually don't know. Is NHL 24, can you even have it on? I thought it was definitely something introduced in NHL 23, but like now you don't even see people using it. It wouldn't be a zone trait. I don't even think you could get it as a zone. It would have to be a superstar trait. But I would say, yeah, in 24, you're not going to see people using it because now everything can be performed with one button. And I don't even think deking, it actually goes into deking, I believe, right? As long as you, like if you're playing total controls, that's a new control scheme that can be used in NHL 24. If you were going to use it, all you had to do is press the Y button or triangle button, whatever, and hold it for a certain amount of time, and it would basically work. I think the only use it would have is if you wanted to perform those shots all the time, you know, but nobody's ever really doing that. Same with Spinorama. Like you can just get away with that. Even though it does have potential uses, it's just is not good. Like you could have a semi-competitive build with some of these other traits. This is not used at all. Stick them up. This is, again, I would call this the same here with Shutdown, and I would technically put it ahead of it. Some people may want to put it behind. I would say it's ahead of Shutdown. The reason is because of how quick you could poke check and sort of move your stick, right? Like if you were going to use your defensive stick and you were going to try to like put it ahead of somebody and then poke check, right? So when somebody's on a breakaway and you're like trailing behind them trying to defend, you could throw your stick out and then quickly move it so you're not directly going for their feet. So a lot of people have troubles with that type of defensive play because they're just not skilled enough to do it. But stick them up definitely is something I've always had on every single defensive build. If I was going to get rid of a trait, it would be Shutdown for like some other passing trait. If I wanted to have it, I would always keep stick them up on. That's for me. It's not an S tier trait, but it is an A at the very top. Same with tape to tape. Same with tape to tape. Tape to tape is up here. Better than send it. It is definitely here. And it's not an S. It's not an S because you don't necessarily need it. It's not like a very, like it has to be on your build, but it is definitely a solid trait to have, especially when you're a defenseman or even, you know, a playmaker, like a center, even a winger could use this and benefit it. But like, that's the thing. You would send it as a defenseman. As soon as you unlock tape to tape, you would then put that on, right? If you were going to use a certain passing trait. So yeah, it is definitely better than send it. Definitely an A in my opinion. Third eye would have to be on the same playing field, I think, as send it. Because again, it's only active during, I think, no look behind passes. So if you're going to try to pass behind you, it could be used. I think in 22 you could use it. If you're somebody that's like a winger, you go into the zone and you want to quickly get it back to your defenseman or maybe somebody trailing behind you, it could be used then, and it could be a solid like setup play. But beyond that, it's not used. Send it's better, but I mean, you could actually probably deduct this and move it back a little bit if you were going to probably put it behind some of these shooting traits, but I'm trying to like combine like passing traits, like things that are sort of the same. It's not necessarily that it's like better than these other traits. It just depends on the style that you play. It's still B category. So I do think that it like deserves to be there. It can be used. Same with send it. It can be used, but as soon as you get something else, as soon as you get tape to tape, you're gonna wind up putting that on. Just Thunderclap. Never seen it being used ever. When I did see it, you could say it could be like right here probably. Is like the same as off the rush. It's just, it is a specific shooting trait that needs to be activated at a specific area and a certain style shot. So Thunderclap is only at the point when you're taking a slap shot. So you have to fully wind up your shot to take a shot for it to activate. It's not good. Beyond that, it's just simply, it takes way too long, especially in a competitive play, a competitive game. So I would put it on the same playing field as off the rush. So not good. Total Eclipse, right? Total Eclipse. Interesting. Grinders I've seen before in the past would sort of main this, combine it with Big Tipper. The trait itself is not good. I could probably put it somewhere down in the C. Because it's, yeah, you like screen the goaltender, but that doesn't mean he's not going to save it. You know, it's just simply the goalie doesn't react fast enough. But if you combine that with Big Tipper, it could be a solid trait to use. It's just not competitive. It's not better than these other ones, which could be used in certain like specific areas. Now, if I was going to say how we have our certain traits now, I would probably throw down Crease Crasher. I might even bump up All Alone, but I don't even think it would probably be somewhere down here, to be honest. Truculence. Now, if I was going to say Truculence of NHL 24, I would bump it to an A. Probably put it back here somewhere. Maybe even back here. If it's going to be 24 alone. 24 got a huge, it got a huge nerf. Truculence got a huge nerf, man. Because the style of hitting is different. It's not just you hold your right stick down and then you just let the game do itself, right? In NHL 22 and 23, it was a competitive trait, and you could use it here. Because of NHL 24 being the only game in which it's nerfed, does it deserve to be dropped back? No, I think I'm going to keep it there because I think it's still a solid trait to use in threes. And if you're a competitive threes player, you're going to see at least one guy use this. Even in 24, I think there's probably at least one guy using it, because you would just throw him down, like you would just send him the forecheck. The other two guys would probably be like super quick elite edges type players, right? And if you were to always hit, like there should be a style in which, it's probably a style in which you would just send this guy to forecheck every single play and back check every single play, and he would just always get the hit. So yeah, it's definitely it still can be a competitive trait to use in threes at least. You're not going to use it in sixes because it's a banned trait in LG when it comes to leagues, but in just regular pubs it can be used. But I've noticed a lot of like weird type of hits, like I go and I like punch somebody and it's like an elbowing call or like whatever, an elbow strike. It's like, it's weird. I definitely think it combines with discipline. I think you need to have higher discipline in order for it to go off. Unstoppable Force. It had its uses, I think, in 22, maybe a little bit in 23. It just, obviously, it's not S. You can maybe say it's A. But the problem is, man, I gotta say it's truly a B. When you compare some of these other styles, I just don't think it's good, because especially in 24, man, you go, it's not hard to hit guys. Even if they're big, they have unstoppable force. You could still get a nudge on them, and that's all you need. You could throw a hip check at them and they'll always fall. They don't necessarily negate certain checks, right? When it faces against Truculence in all three games, you lose, right? You just simply lose. It just loses. And because you have other traits that beat it, it's not good. It drops down tiers. So it's no longer, it maybe could have been an A if it was like NHL 22 and 23 alone, because I think maybe there is certain type of play styles in which somebody would just be super big and they would use that. And they could set it up maybe in threes. I don't really think sixes. Maybe a center power forward. but you know, for like 6s, but I don't think so, man. Wheels, you can't, well, actually you can use this, right? If it was 22, 23, you can't. It's a preset in 24. Problem is with the preset, I mean, really nobody's using this trait. It's not a comp trait. Even with the preset, when you compare it to the 95 speed builds, the thing is, the only way you can use it is if you use the vector preset. So it's 92 speed. It's not good. It is simply not good because it's not as fast. It's not as fast as I thought it was going to be. When I was like sort of at the start of MSO 24, I'm thinking, if they add wheels, I was thinking people are going to use it, and the fact that they're not simply makes it a not used trait ever. Yoink. There's some defensemen that use this thing. I wouldn't say it's A. I could probably give it a B, but B as it is, it would probably be somewhere like, it would have to be behind magnetic, and it'd probably be in line with like in reverse, maybe, because there are some defensemen that do use it. I actually have seen some 6s defensemen use it, and that's like their way of playing. Like they skate, like they always turn around, skate. They kind of let you get close, and then they'll just quickly stick lift you. That's a strategy, but against really high comp players, these other traits are going to be obviously better. Like when you do compare the defensive traits in stick 'em up, shutdown, truculence, right? It just is a clear disadvantage compared to those traits because it's only 4 stick lifts. These other ones, clearly poke checks and, you know, body checks are used a lot more. In 23, I believe these stick lifts were almost guaranteed penalties, so you just wouldn't use Yoink because of that. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a C trait because it can be used to a certain degree, but I think that's it as a whole. What do we think of this list? So currently I have S, Elite Edges, Close Quarters, 1T, Big Tipper, Truck. These are the 5 main ones that people typically use. 2 of these traits are banned. These are the 3, I would say, main traits that people run. You have 1T Sniper, Gold. Beyond that, it's definitely a good silver trait to have on. These other ones, right, main traits that people are using in both 6s and 3s. Defensive traits, you know, with the A category, you know, we got stick 'em up, shut down, tape to tape, make it snappy, puck on a string. I might be giving too much of this, but I do think it is useful. This could actually drop down. Same with, I think, these 2 shooting traits could drop down because, like, when it comes to a competitive standpoint, I'm probably gonna actually throw this back here. When it comes to a competitive standpoint, I think if you were going to use these traits, like, you may be able to give, like, if you were going to compare all the B category traits, I would say these 3 probably could be handpicked to be used. If you were going to try to like try out a certain build, right, and like throw these on. So these are going to be on the back of A, like they're kind of like in between A and B, but they're on the back of A. You know what I mean? Like I think they are good enough to be moved up to the A. I don't think they're necessarily better than these other ones that are on the front of it. That may be, you know, doing some disrespect to the Unstoppable Force, because again, certain playstyles could benefit from that. But I guess, you know, the way the tuners are on Answer 24, I think that's what drops it down. I would sort of compare these 3 traits to Unstoppable Force and say that, but nah, I'm going to drop that down. Because of those tuners in 24, these ones could still be used in 24. And then you got Send It, Third Eye, Snipe, Shock and Awe, Magnetic, Yoink, In Reverse, Beauty Backhand, and Big Rig. If you do notice, these every single one of these traits, besides Unstoppable Force, all have to be activated with a certain like criteria that is not always met in a high level game. The only one that would be, I mean, like these, you know, when you compare like Seeing Eye and Heatseeker, it's sort of the same deal. But again, like these other ones just aren't as comp as these other ones are. I feel like you could use it on certain playstyle, especially when you combine it with Big Tipper. Like that's what bumps it up, is because it could be combined with with another trait. These other ones, not so much. And then some of these other ones sort of get like overruled by another shooting trait, right? When you look at SHNIPE and shock and awe, I think close quarters is what beats it. That's why it drops down. If it was going to be an A category type trait. Magnetic, again, only used in 22. It can be used, maybe you get certain pucks in 23, 24. That's why it's a B and not necessarily, you know, a C. Same with YOINK and these other ones. I think certain type of builds could benefit from it. Maybe it's a starting trait and it works. All alone, you could say maybe that should be up here, combined with Beauty Backhand. When it comes to like breakaways and like a threes type mentality, like that's what it would sort of be it. Used the same as, but nah. Beauty Backhand, I think this is only for breakaways and stuff like that. This could be used in the threes, like even with somebody's like right up in your face. You could technically backhand and maybe snipe it that way. That's why I think it's better than all alone. That's why I think it moves up, but it's like these are on the edge of it sort of being like, again, not that good of a trade either way. And then some of these other ones, right? Crease Crasher, back at you, Total Eclipse, ankle breaker off the rush, Thunderclap, shrug it off, Ice Pack, and bounce back. These are the ones, I mean, they can be used, but like very rarely, and then like specific areas. I think, you know, Total Eclipse, it just doesn't do enough, even though it would activate, it would combine well with Big Tipper and like a shooting trait combined. It's just itself, these other traits could be used in the same area and it would just dominate that spot. That's why I don't think Total Eclipse could move up. Same with these other ones. I don't think Anchor Breaker is necessarily good. It's definitely not as good as Puck on a String if you're going to like try to dangle a lot, because you don't really need to be doing actual, because like for this one you need to be doing actual deeks for it to be, and you need to be at high speed. Like you just don't see people using it. That's why I just don't think it's as good. And then these other ones, man, like Born Leader, Bouncer, it's tricky. Quick Draw can't even use. Skilled Up, Spinorama, and then Wheels. If Wheels was to be used and you could actually use it on like a sniper or something like that, you could maybe see in the future in Answer 25 it actually going up if that was going to be the case. But the rest of these are just not used, man. So honestly, what do you guys think of this tier list? I honestly think I have it pretty accurate. Now, it's not just for, again, Answer 24. I combine it with 23, 22. Basically, ever since the start of when we moved to Frostbite and these things were introduced along with it. I honestly think it's pretty solid, and I'm kind of curious what could be, how this could change in my mind when it comes to NHO 25. Now, we haven't had any information released on that yet. We will pretty soon. This is August. We should get it relatively soon with the trailer and the, you know, gameplay and beta and all that coming pretty soon as we move into September as well later on. So yeah, what do you guys think of this tier list? Let me know your thoughts. I'm actually curious, and if you think I'm like completely wrong, or maybe I'm dead accurate and you guys think, yeah, this is good, or anything and everything, let me know your thoughts. I appreciate you guys watching. Like the video, subscribe if you're new. This one is definitely going to be a longer video, I can already tell. So if you do like it, I would definitely appreciate you guys thumbing up the video. It would definitely support me a lot, supports the channel as well, and I will catch you guys next time.